Unfortunately, there was a bit of an incident out on the road today. A spectator in the early parts of the race with a cup of urine threw it into my face and said "dopé" like that at me, which is extremely wrong on so many different levels. And yeah, I'm really disappointed about that. I think it's not in the name of sport.
Hello, it's stage 15 of the Tour, and as you'll know if you're watching yesterday's coverage, the attacks on Chris Froome have gone beyond the verbal. Now, strictly speaking, the only person responsible for throwing that cup of urine in Froome's face is the man who filled it and carried it to the roadside, and he's not around to explain his motivation. However, as you heard Chris Froome say, he clearly blames the various adverse and, as he sees it, irresponsible comments in the media thus far about his performance for creating the atmosphere that has led to someone doing what they did. And chief among the people who, according to Froome, know who they are is the former French rider and now French TV pundit Laurent Jalabert, and we know that because Froome publicly took him to task for making comments after stage 10. Now, we'll bring you those comments themselves in the highlights show, but I think one of the chief things that irked Froome was that Jalabert was making a comment at all, because he's someone whose own urine was found to have contained EPO when the samples from the 1998 Tour de France were retrospectively tested in 2004. Despite that, he has never publicly come clean about his doping past. So, given all that, we thought it was worth having a word with him this morning to see if he wanted to clarify his comments or tell us what they were based on.
Laurent, auriez-vous un petit moment pour une interview sur Chris Froome, sur vos commentaires?
Non, j'ai pas de commentaires à faire sur ça. Non. Tout va bien, nickel.
Mais vous avez fait des insinuations assez fortes.
Non, c'est pas vrai.
Non.
C'est la presse qui essaie de monter ça en flèche.
J'ai écouté super étonnant, phénoménal, qui frôle le ridicule. Ça nous laisse
c'est pas moi qui ai dit ça, qui frôle le ridicule. Non.
Ah non. Vous pensez que... quelle est votre position sur Froome alors, effectivement?
Moi, je suis spectateur du Tour. Non, mais il n'y a pas d'interview sur Froome. Tout va bien, sérieusement. Non.
Oui. Et
je suis un témoin du Tour, il n'y a pas de problème.
Oui. Et sur le sujet du dopage, Laurent, vous n'avez pas été entièrement transparent sur votre dopage.
Bonne journée. Hein.
Vous pensez que une personne comme ça devrait faire des commentaires sur le dopage des autres?
Now, as I say, we'll bring you his original comments in the highlight show tonight and you can judge for yourselves. But, Chris, they contain phrases like made me feel uncomfortable watching, verging on the ridiculous, the gaps between him and the others. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's even broader than that because he was asked the question to get to that point, is this reasonable and is Chris Froome credible? So there was insinuation without fact. It suggests that there is a case to be answered. And I think that's the important bit here, that the journalists also need to be responsible because this is where the public get their information from, and we all demand that the riders do the right thing, and I think the press also have a responsibility to act in the same way. So investigative journalism, absolutely hard investigative journalism, but we must stick to the facts.
Yeah, and nobody's suggesting, incidentally, that a former doper isn't qualified, perhaps better qualified than anyone, to comment on possible doping, and you might be sitting at home saying, well, look, ITV4 employ David Miller. But, Chris, I think there's a difference between a rider who doped, admitted it, came clean and then crusaded against doping, and one who never admitted it, has weaseled his way through and managed to hold on to his job and actually been part of that whole structure that maintained the silence for so many years.
I think there's that and the fact that we are missing facts here. I mean, that's at the root of it, that we have people making comment, whether they be credible or incredible, they're making comment on something without facts, and that's not investigative journalism, it's insinuation and it's not helpful.
All right. Now, we will get to the racing very shortly, but down at the start this morning, the Tour de France director himself, Christian Prudhomme, felt moved to make a statement about yesterday's incident.
Le respect des coureurs du Tour de France, de tous les coureurs du Tour de France, et évidemment du maillot jaune, il est indispensable. Le public du Tour, c'est un public familial, c'est un public sympathique, c'est un public convivial. Voilà, les 10 ou 12 millions de spectateurs qui sont au bord des routes sont des gens sympas. Il y a une poignée d'individus qui a un comportement inacceptable qu'on ne peut évidemment que condamner. Et inciter et dire aux gens, soyez comme vous avez toujours été. Soyez des supporters du Tour de France. Et si vous n'aimez pas tel ou tel, vous ne dites rien. Ou même encore, vous ne venez pas. Mais en tout cas, le public du Tour, c'est un public chaleureux. Et ces comportements-là, ces débordements-là, chez certains individus, c'est évidemment hautement condamnable.
Well, fine words, and you couldn't possibly disagree with them, Chris, but I mean, completely unenforceable on a race like the Tour.
It is, and I think you made a good point. You know, there are millions of people who watch the Tour de France, and it's an incredibly friendly event. It's free. You stand by the side of the road and you watch it. But because of those numbers, statistically, you're going to get some nutters. We've had them in the past. As I mentioned, I've been part of a mace attack a few years ago generally on the Tour. Mark Cavendish has had an issue. We've even had riders shot at with an air rifle. But the vast majority of people, vast majority of the time, it's a really friendly spectator event.
OK. All right, well, let's get off to racing then and hope that the spectators today do spectate rather than participate. Now then.